Current or ex-theme park employees, what are some dirty secrets that most people don't know about? Been a while since I worked at Disney. Here's what I can remember. Code words 101 ride down, 102 ride back up, official. Code words, unofficial, 105, attractive guest, 737 fat guest, 747 fat guest on an ECV. We spread vomit on vomit. As others have described, it's a sawdust-like material with an incredibly distinctive smell. We do indeed hate you. That one clever thing you do to try to get a rise out of us? Yeah, we've seen it a million times before. Being nice is a great way to get us to treat you well. Nice people get to ride again if I'm feeling generous. People who try to insist to ride again stop the ride for everyone else. We have had a little book which had the ability to rectify situations. You dropped your soda? We can get you another. Weren't supposed to, but we did give them out for magical moments. Could give you a fast pass for any ride in the park. Free food, etc. At the end of the night, we walk the track and locate items lost. Some of the unsavory employees, cast members, would find items and take them. One dude I knew sold crap on eBay all the time. Yes, we can get you into the park for free. No, we're not going to. Some people sell their passes. Can be termed for it. Didn't stop him. Working hotels, we give back ridiculous amounts of money for stupid inconveniences. In addition, if someone is really nice or celebrating something, we can deliver free stuff to the room. Once spent $300 on someone cause they were incredibly kind and celebrating a milestone anniversary. If you complain enough, Disney will cater to you. My ex's mom never made reservations for anything. She'd just go and insist she had a reservation, argue shamelessly for 15-20 minutes, and eventually we'd be seated. It was always awkward. I didn't work at Disney during that time. Did it for Cinderella's Royal Table, the steakhouse in Canada, Epcot, Crystal Palace, literally any restaurant. We know when you're full of crap. We've heard everything. At the end of the day, it's a job, and most, aside from college program kids who actually think the experience is going to mean something in their lives, of us don't give a crap about you, how much you've saved for years, etc. It's a minimum wage job and we don't get paid enough to deal with your BS. Disney World has bed bugs. There's an actual code for them. I want to remember code 206, maybe, and they've been found all over the resort rooms. Makes sense. But also on the rides. Epcot is especially bad for bed bugs. The code is 724. How gross the food is. Overpriced and frozen. Dropped on the floor and picked up with unwashed hands. I worked in the in-park subway, and my manager made me wash off moldy tomatoes to serve to customers because she forgot to order fresh food. Subway, eat mold. Not lurid, but just behind the scenes from a different angle, I worked as an acrobat in a show at a park one summer. It was amazing. I got paid $125 a day, so as a 19-year-old like a decade ago who had been waiting tables for like 12-13-hour shifts the summer before, it felt like I was an actual rock star or something. I had money for my monthly rent in less than a week each month and money to spare that I could blow on clubbing and stuff. I had 3 half-hour shows a day, with 2 3-hour breaks between shows. During the breaks I could go ride rides because as a contracted employee through the production company, I wasn't technically a direct employee of the park. It was a medium-sized park that I'd thought large as like a high schooler, but I got tired of the rides in like 3-4 days. Then I wandered to the water park and found the lazy river and realized I could just ride the lazy river all day and tan and get paid for it. Later even that got boring to do all day, so I would spend my time between shows getting better at my acro that I was performing in the show, but I didn't want to get hurt pushing too hard on the job since there was no workers' comp. So I ended up learning to play guitar and sing at the top of the scaffolding on the set, like 25 feet up with a cool breeze and audio privacy just from the amount of park noise around me. I'd do it again, if I had the chance, but I'm not good enough anymore and have to be a grown-up. It was probably the best 4 months of my life, in some ways. I guess the only behind-the-scenes thing that I think everyone would be interested in is just like, I was allowed to walk everywhere in the park. I had an ID badge that someone could theoretically check, but my costume for the show was streetwear anyway and no one ever really checked who I was or asked why I was where I was. at any point in the summer. All summer I just walked around exploring the minutiae of the park with impunity, and 80% of the time I could have been a random park goer and no one would have checked. It's really amazing how deep into places you can just walk acting confidently, without anyone asking if you should be there. Former park ops at a Florida theme park here. My job was to do custodial work in the bathroom and pathways, sweep, take out trash, hose, etc. of my designated section while occasionally getting assigned theater duty. That $15 meal that you just paid for in the restaurant? Yeah, the employees can get all of that for $2 or $3. Just depends on the items. Theme park food is definitely way overpriced for guests. If you complain enough, you will get what you want. When the theater hits capacity, I can't let anyone in. You can give me a sob story about how you traveled all the way from Antarctica for all I care. The second that you mention wanting to talk to a supervisor, I have to get them. 9/10 times my supervisor will let you through the show no problem, just to keep you happy. I, on the other hand, will be slightly annoyed, but that's how things work in theme parks. There are plainclothes security officers walking around the whole entire park. You probably don't even notice. Please think twice before doing anything stupid like fricking on the sky ride. There are plainclothes security officers walking around the whole entire park. You probably don't even notice. Please think twice before doing anything stupid like fricking on the sky ride. I wonder where else people have thought of. I was a lifeguard at a seasonal water park many years ago. It was my first job, and one of the most amazing ones I ever had to this day. First, the good. Most large water parks have extremely well-trained lifeguards, even if they are all teenagers. They are usually working between 20-60 hours a week, and some of those hours are additional first aid and skills training. We had drop tests done on us randomly throughout the season too. A babbittle was dropped in the water. We called him Timmy if I remember right, and we had 20 seconds to spot him, blow the whistle and begin pre-forming rescue techniques. Just to prove we were always actively watching for anything unusual or people who may need help. Now the weird. If a water attraction is randomly closed down, and the guards are blocking it for a short time, it's probably because someone pooped in the pool and the head guards are making sure it all got cleaned out. Very stupid and frustrating, but no one wants to swim with a poop. Oh, and those big funnel slides? Yes, some of us have fallen down them. It turns out it's really easy to lose your balance when you are a 120-pound teenage girl trying to manage a raft full of 4 fully grown adults. I would not recommend going down without the tube. It's terrifying. Not that I know from experience, of course. And finally the bad. While the guards and on-site first aid are very well trained, we aren't a replacements for a doctor. Many amusement parks are in more rural areas, since they need so much space to build and expand. If you are seriously injured, and it's life-threatening, it can take a long time before you are transported to a proper or hospital. I say this because we were trained to get someone who is drowning safely out of the water, and treat minor injuries, but we can't put you back together if you say, fall 40 feet off the slides. We had something like this happen the first summer I worked. Someone was messing around on the speed slide platform, slipped past the guardrail and fell. I'm not sure they could have been helped even if they had immediate medical care, but I know it was already too late when the ambulance got there. The staff that responded to this was forced to take a few days off and someone didn't return to first aid afterwards. Like I said in the beginning, we were well trained and dedicated, but we were still kids. Actually having to deal with an emergency like that is too much to ask at that age. So please, even if a rule seems stupid, follow what the guards say, take breaks when you have to, and don't push yourself when you are playing in a water park. It really is for your safety. Guy at a chicken tendies restaurant in the theme park was a farmer hick. Liked to do stupid pranks. Turnover was high so a manager was 16yo. Basically kids run them parks. Anyway, wanted to fry his boot in the deep fryer to see what would happen. Boot was caked in cow crap. He dropped it in. At this time a customer was bitching about not getting his french fries. Said I didn't pay $47 to come in this park and stand in a line all day. This was about 17 years ago now. Anyway, hick farmer was getting annoyed with trying to tong his boot out of the fryer. Gets annoyed at the customer and throws the fries down. Fry basket right over the crap-caked boot, cooked until golden brown and served up to the customer. That was my first day working at the park and my last day in food services. Forever. To this day, if I'm ever dragged to the park for whatever reason, I always avoid that chicken restaurant. I very briefly worked at a theme park in southern Indiana. I was training to be a ride operator in the little kids section. Canoe Pond was my area. It was actually a really good park and there weren't a ton of things I saw in my short time there that could be considered a dirty secret. The biggest scandal was that the performers of stage shows, who would have to perform no matter what, would ad-lib dirty lines if no one was there, even though you could kind of hear them from outside the performing area. There were also lots of concern about the Thanksgiving meals being really old, because no one was buying them. A theme park in southern Indiana. So, Holiday World. Love Holiday World. And of course there are no dirty secrets cause the owner would be out there cleaning them up. I worked at Disney World and at Universal. I wish I had dirt to share, but both companies were on the up and up and treated guests with care and provided workers safe environments in which to do their jobs. What I can share for those interested: mangers get paid very little, but stay on for the love of job. People in charge of rides instantly hate anyone who stands up when they're clearly not supposed to. You ruin our days by doing so, jackasses. Blink twice if Mickey is holding a gun to you. I worked for an amusement park in Ohio for 2 summers and the worst things I've seen are for the foods department. I personally watched a box of frozen fries for one of the food stands fall off a pallet, get semi-crushed by the forklift tire, get thrown back into the pallets to be served. They also had their entire food warehouse get closed down for a better part of the summer because of a bird infestation. The company salvaged what they could and threw it into refrigerated trailers to be served from. The summers I worked there were great, exhausting and probably borderline illegal for the open-close shifts. They had people working going from 7-8 am to maybe 12 am or later. I wouldn't give up the friends I made there, but it could have definitely been better. Please don't tell me this happened at Kings Island. We don't get paid overtime. We can work anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day. And there's a special exception in the US labor code that says that theme park employees don't need to be paid overtime if they're a seasonal employee. And it just so happens that theme parks mostly hire seasonal employees. Chew on that for your next visit to a theme park north of the Mason-Dixon line. Beyond that, here's a tip. If it's a seasonal park and they're looking to hire, for the love of God, do not apply at the start of the season. They'll tell you that there are more benefits, but if it's at the start of a season, they're understaffed, which means you work double shifts. An employee in the park collapsed in early May after being on his feet for over 10 hours straight. Worked at a haunted house in one of the Cedar Fair amusement parks. Actors get beaten the frick up on the regular. Part of it is fight or flight responses, which is fine. The other part is just buttholes. We usually have a spotter who wanders outside the house itself and passes along word of any unsavory guests or management on their way in. As for the park itself, the most notable thing I can think of was the preferential treatment. Anyone who was a family member, friend of high-end staff got in free, got to go to the front of lines, etc. Or investors lol. I remember trying to slug a girl that jumped out at me out of that response. I think she was in my math class. If there was a time in which a guest on our ride was hanging from the ride, the protocol is to keep the ride up, and if they fall and die, they die. The fall would be around 50 featuring or so. Also, there was a situation with a manager that let a kid that was too short to go on our ride on because the parents got angry enough and threatened to sue. When they got down to the loading area, the workers were instructed specifically not to measure the kid, even after 3 different employees said this kid wasn't tall enough. The parents got angry enough and threatened to sue. Murica. Disney cares so much more about guests than cast. I had a good experience with the company, but I remember a time I told them I would get injured doing X thing. They made me do it anyway and didn't care until I sliced open my leg and my costume in front of guests. That sounds like a really good reason to sue. The tilt-a-whirl is slightly reclined when seated, so all your change, and phone possibly, will fall out of your pocket. Specifically check your seat after this ride. If I had $1 for every time someone lost money out of the wait, I do have $1 for every time. Money found at work is the best kind of bonus. Signed, ex-laundromat attendant. Frontier City in Oklahoma City. Dear Lord, where do I begin? I'm just gonna do a blow by blow. Everything in our retail side is marked up by at minimum 600%. We get the cheapest, flimsiest crap that is worth absolutely nothing and sell it. All the games are rigged and the prizes are worth nothing. Mornings is when it's best to play. The carts with flashing light up toys have a lifespan of 6 hours max and insanely flimsy. We usually have a hard time finding ones that actually work to put on the cart. Employees aren't allowed to eat the food or sit down while working no matter where they are and given one 30 minutes break per 8 hours. The food we are allowed to eat is outrageously overpriced food you'd find at a gas station. One meal there is more than we make in an hour and a half. There is nowhere to store a packed lunch. We stop rides and pretend they're broken so we can't take a break while maintenance walks down to check out our ride. We've had multiple people nearly die at the park. We are told what to write on the police report, and if we speak to them directly or the press we are fired and banned for life. TLDR. Staff are strongly mistreated, underpaid, and you're getting tremendously ripped off buying anything. Never mess with ride ops. Safety is always number one, and I will kick you out of the park if you're threatening someone's safety, including your own. Listen to all the instructions even if it don't agree, because it's there to prevent you from being hurt. Was at Six Flags in NJ a few years ago where a guy was listening to music or WE on his phone. Ride op person said to take the headphones off, so he did. But the second they started climbing the hill he put them back in. You could see it from the line, didn't even need cameras. The ride op girl looked so giddy to kick him out of the park. I worked as a rides operator at Six Flags when I was 16. Most days they had me working 10-hour shifts. Some rides, not the coasters. There is only one attendant there, so in some cases it's very easy to screw up and forget something important. I worked at a traveling dinosaur themed carnival when it came through during college. I was in charge of one of the bounce houses. The generator constantly went out, causing it to deflate with kids inside. This was a large bounce house and a child could easily have been smothered. Once a child bled all over the inside. I mean, it was everywhere. All they did was clean up what was visible from the outside and told me to open the ride back up. The generator caught the bounce house on fire at the end of the day once. The next day it was patched really poorly and the generator was still in the same spot. My friend started her period but wasn't given a break to go take care of it, so she bled through her clothes for 6 hours. When I brought up the issue of safety too many times, I was fired. I worked at the Washington State Fair at the Fisher Fair scones booth. One day we opened up a new bag of scone mix. Totally normal, we went through several bags a day. As soon as I opened it up, I saw some type of big bugs crawling around in the mix. Looked like a mix between a cockroach and a junibug. They were in several bags and I took them all to my manager, who looked inside a bag and said we still needed to use them because it was wasteful and would lose money if we threw them out. Made scones with those bags with bugs. People are obsessed with these scones and come by dozens at a time. Probs potato bugs. IDK if this counts, but I used to work at Red Rocks Amphitheater and guess what? Lots of people have died there. Usually 1-3 every summer. People overdose at concerts, trip and crack their heads on the stairs, fall trying to illegally climb the rocks, etc. Several people have died on the roller coaster. They just packed it up and moved it somewhere else when it got a bad name. I worked the grand opening of the place they moved this roller coaster to. I recognized it as being the same one that was at a previous park I used to go to that no one wanted to ride anymore because a few people died on it. They let the laborers that built the thing ride the rides after opening day. One of them came up to me and said, "Hey, my friend is afraid to ride that roller coaster, and he built the thing." What? How can he be afraid of heights? I saw him walking around on those tracks without a harness. No, he's not afraid of heights. He just knows how crappy it is. Years later, the park was in the news for, someone dying again on that roller coaster. It must be the 4th or 5th person thus far. My sister worked at Action Park. It was so dangerous Johnny Knoxville made a movie based on it. The favorite story of mine is all the small town kids broke into the brewery next door and stole all the beer and then drag raced all the go-karts down the highway. It was a place full of 13-year-old drunk lifeguards running a water park. It was glorious. Random gory details. People died every other year. My sister broke her back. I nearly drowned when a lifeguard landed on me after jumping 12-ish feet. Their insurance company was a sham company based in South America. Basically, New Jersey had no laws about inspections or safety, and any they have now are because of crap that happened at Action Park. Google it, trust me. I used to operate a roller coaster when I worked for an amusement park one summer. You'll be amazed at how much loose change accumulates under the rubber pads on roller coaster seats. During closing time, we'd clean up for the day and then stuff our pockets with as much coinage as we could carry. Hopefully I don't ruin any childhoods here. I have some friends that work at Disneyland, and they tell me that there are people inside the costumes like Mickey and Donald, etc. I haven't seen any proof yet, so maybe they are just messing with me. I used to work in a theme park that does a major Halloween themed event every year. The haunted houses use the same props and set pieces in similar scenes every year with a new coat of paint to match the current theme. The shows use an almost identical script year after year, plugging the latest pop culture icons into the same pointless story they've been telling for decades. There is a button I push that makes you win or lose a big the Hammer Smash game. We are told to push the lose button 10 times for every win button. My wife used to work for Disney World. One ride in particular was the Haunted Mansion ride. There was a time when a park cat, yes, there are strays that live in the park, snuck in the ride and lived there for 2 weeks until someone was finally able to find it and chase it out. Many thought they'd never find it or they'd find its corpse. Also, if you see a WDW cast member walking to the Haunted Mansion with one of those Ghostbuster backpack vacuums, it's because someone spread a loved one's ashes on the ride. They called this a code grandma. I worked at Six Flags for a few years as a ride op. Good news is that the rides are inspected every day and safety is taken very seriously. Any noise, smell, or even just a gut feeling that isn't normal is a reason to call the ride down, and you'll never be punished if you really believe something is wrong. Also, the training is very safety oriented. A vast majority of injuries on a ride were people tripping on the flat station platform. We were responsible for keeping the ride clean, but were usually staffed at the bare minimum to keep the ride running, so we would clean before and after the park closed, but nothing got done in between. Those handrails you're touching have been held onto by literally thousands of people. It's honestly not a huge deal, just make sure you wash your hands before eating. Biggest negative were the stupid guests. I've had people try to bring babies on roller coasters, squeeze 2 kids into a single seat, bring food onto rides, argue with us about our locker policy. We hate it too, but I don't feel like job hunting right now, and just the typical retail crap. Luckily there were a decent number of cool guests to make up for it. I worked in a water park in France as a lifeguard when I was younger. We lived in tents behind the park for the entire summer season. We spent our days shouting at snotty little French kids not to go down the slides on their knees, no inflatables or groups on the slides. Every night we'd make ourselves something to eat in the cafeteria and then go out and party and get drunk until the early hours. Then we'd head back to the park, crack open beers and turn the slides on in the middle of the night. Then we'd grab the inflatable dinghies and try and kill ourselves on the slides by breaking all the rules that we enforced brought the day. Nobody died. It was a summer of considerable amounts of fricking and nakedness. Good times. Was trained on a single ride called the Claw that, as probably known, flipped people upside down and stuff. We used to have to run a quick health and safety, make sure no loose items on your person, sunglasses, changed etc, but didn't mention coins in pockets. After we closed, a buddy and myself used to go under the ride and come out of the park about £5 richer each time I worked. Worked there for just under a year, 5-6 days a week. It paid like absolute garbage, so the little extra £5.10 a day paid for my food. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.